Hey, I'm Stephan Frost. You're watching Connected Digital World. We're here today to talk about Wildstar, a brand new MMO coming out in 2013. Get excited, it's amazing.
Hi, Andrew from Connected Digital World here. We recently got to play some of NCSoft's new MMO game Wildstar, developed by Carbine Studios. As well as playing the game, we got the opportunity to sit down with Stephan Frost, who you might recognise his voice from the DevSpeak videos. Anyway, over to Stephan.
Right.
Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. So my name is Stephan Frost. I am the design producer at Carbine Studios. I basically work with the design teams, make sure that they get their job done on time, schedule them out, work with other teams to communicate what their deliverables are, and kind of work with the leads to ensure we have a quality product.
Great. So we're here to talk about Wildstar.
Indeed.
Do you want to tell us all about it?
Sure. So Wildstar is an MMORPG. It is pretty much meant for MMO gamers, although we're happy to bring anybody else in that wants to check it out. But we've got stuff like housing, player paths, which is kind of like, what is your gameplay type? Do you like to kill things? We're going to give you more content like that. You like to explore? We're going to give you loads of mountains to climb up and caves to explore underground. We've got things like PvP. We've got things like dungeons, 40-man raids. We are trying to make the next big MMO, and I think we're on par for doing that. And on top of that, my favorite part of this game is the combat. I think that we have a really dynamic combat system that's a lot of fun. It's not just the typical run up to a mob, hit a button 3 times, and hopefully they die. It's telegraphs that are on the ground that you have to leap out of the way of. We have shift sprints so you can run faster. We have double jump in our game, so we have vertical play space that you can jump up. Our combat and movement is like a huge part of our game, and I think it's a lot of fun.
Great. We're going to talk about each of those in a moment.
Perfect.
Let's give us a little bit of background to what Wildstar is as a story.
Okay. So the story is there's this planet Nexus, and it was heavily guarded by these satellite defense systems. And so anybody that kind of came near the planet was just vaporized instantly. Until one day there was an explorer that happened to go by there and wasn't shot down. He was able to land on the planet, and he basically called in his compatriots, and they started landing on the planet. Those are the exiles. The Dominion, who are their rivals, wanted the planet as well, and in fact wanted claim to it because they were related to that crazy race that was there before, and it's suddenly gone. So we have these two factions kind of vying for this planet, and that's where the conflict comes in. But there's also this story of where did this hyper-advanced race go? So you're trying to figure that out, and that's kind of where the player comes in, is settling this new planet and kicking lots of ass.
And this race you're talking about is the Eldin.
The Elden, correct.
Right. Anything you can tell us about that without spoiling the story?
No. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of really cool stuff. I can say that the Elden had a lot of crazy things on the planet, and they have these exolabs, which are, where they would kind of come up with these crazy experiments, and they had all this interesting stuff. And as a scientist, you can unlock a lot of these caves and exolabs to see kind of what was going on there and figure that stuff out.
Challenge added. Challenge achieved.
So there are 4 different paths in the game.
Correct.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about each of the paths and why player might want to choose that path?
Sure. So we have 4 paths, as you said. We have the soldier, which is a killer. If you like killing things, we're going to give you lots of stuff to kill, and we're going to give you instruments to do it. So there are SWAT missions where you have to go in and test out weapons that, I don't know, shoot acid, and you have to go find stuff that will really decimate creatures in an easier fashion. So there's also holdouts where they're public events where you have loads of creatures that are coming in, and the more players that come in, the more creatures spawn in. It gets a little insane. Then there's Explorer. So if you like finding hidden passageways underground that will lead you all across the zone, or climbing mountains, or doing scavenger hunts, that is for you. If you like lore and story, that's the Scientist. The Scientist has scanning missions that will allow you to unlock information about loads of things, or get access to those exolabs. And then finally is the Settler. This one is kind of like a social butterfly, if you will. They can build lots of crazy buildings in town, and they can build structures that really help out other players. And so when you build up these structures, they build in things that only they can build and that are beneficial for everybody. So, it's a lot of fun, and you can re-roll and have a different experience pretty much every time. It's a fairly cool system, and it's pretty revolutionary. I don't know that we have found any other MMOs that have done something that's like this.
And which is your particular favourite one then?
I'm probably going to say Explorer. I like the idea of finding these hidden caves that just break away and you fall in and you find new content under there, and it allows you to travel to these different spots. And I love the platforming end of things, so doing the double jump to get up these crazy high mountains, that's pretty sweet. It's probably my favorite.
So the game's actually been in development for quite a while now.
Yes.
What are some of the really big challenges you guys have faced?
There's a lot. An MMO is probably the most challenging game to make, period. The reason that is within the game there are sub-games that people form communities around and love. So there's things like dungeons and PvP and housing. All those are little games that are not little, they're quite big actually, that need to be functional and have lots of content for. Because if those communities get upset, then they're going to leave and you're not going to have a game to support anymore. So finding stuff that works for each and every one of those things is excessively challenging, but I think because we have an experienced team that has worked on things like WoW and Warhammer and City of Heroes and a lot of that stuff, it allows us to kind of create these systems. And over the years, I think refining those things and creating a really epic sort of mix of those things has been the hard part, but I think we're starting to see some really cool stuff happen.
Is there going to be an underlying story in the game? So you're going to introduce new content? How's that going to work?
There's definitely a story. So when you start out, it's kind of more hub-based. You get into the area, kind of find out. Our design director refers to it as like an episode of the A-Team. Like you arrive in, there's like half an hour to an hour's worth of content maybe in a hub, and you're kind of doing your thing there, and when you're done, you can just move on to the next one and kind of do that. But as that builds up, there's an underlying world story, which is that Elden mystery. Where did these guys go? What happened to them? And that is more for the end game for PvE users. So once you complete your leveling experience, there is actually more content after that. And specifically, we call it the world story. So you can start to find out some pretty interesting stuff on what happened, where they went, and what is also there and alive within the planet as well. So that is kind of how it continues. And after we launch the game, we're going to update that fairly regularly. there is a continuing story that goes on for years.
You mentioned housing earlier on. Do you
Yes.
want to tell us a little bit about how that works?
Housing, and I'm not saying this to be hyperbolic, in our game is probably the best in the history of games. I say that because it's so amazingly versatile. So you can come in and build your house, and that's not new or revolutionary, but when you can build stuff inside it, the more things you place in your house, the more rest XP you get. So imagine, if you just log out of the game, you get rest XP. But in ours, when you're in your house and you have all that stuff decorated everywhere, it suddenly becomes meaningful not only for your leveling experience, but just because you aesthetically have a really cool looking house. And you can change the size of things, you can move it around. It's like Maya controls. You can put stuff anywhere you want, you can scale it, rotate it, put it on the ceiling if you want, and it all has collision once it's been placed. So it's a pretty dynamic system. We have a lot of options, and we're not even done making the options. So it's super exciting. And then on top of that, it also links in with all the systems that you like as a gamer. So if you are a trade skill person on your property, you can spawn in a mine. So you can mine iron nodes that come in every 24 hours. You can mine those. Or if you're a hardcore raider, you can put in a dungeon portal and then invite all your friends over from your guild and go into a raid that way. So we try to just interconnect all the systems in our game and make housing this convenient and cool, customizable experience that's pretty awesome.
Will other players be able to go into your house?
Yes.
Or, do you have to invite them, or can they just sort of wander in?
I believe they can just wander in, but there has to be a setup that you give permissions to.
Cool.
So it's what you don't want is you can make it public too, so people can just come in at any time. But what you don't want is just people raiding your house and then completely turning it to crap. But you can give. Somebody asked, actually, one of the people from the community had asked, "Can you be an interior decorator?" And yeah, you certainly can. You can hire somebody if you want to pay them, and have them organize the stuff. You give them permissions to your house, and yeah, you can definitely do that.
You can see a whole new line of employment opportunities coming up.
It's just meta gameplay. It's kind of crazy because yeah, we didn't even think of that. That wasn't us. That was just somebody random from the community.
Are you going to be giving players the opportunity to bring things into the game for the house that you may not have thought of? So they can bring in their own equipment, they can bring in posters.
No.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, yeah. Our art director would kind of crap himself if that were the case. So we want to give loads of customizable options, but usually we have in the house you can put anything anywhere. It doesn't matter. On the outside of the house, there are hooks that you can put stuff in, and same with like character customization. We give you a lot of ability to shape your face and move it around and stuff, but it's within reason. We didn't want to create really weird stuff that just kind of takes you out of the experience. So, yeah.
Talking of customization, do you want to talk a little bit about the sort of customization you can do and the options that a player has?
Sure, most definitely. So we have a lot of interesting customization options. You can start out with your face, and each race has its own customized options. So facial hair, if you have it, regular hair, skin color, eye color, and not robots, for example, don't have facial hair, but we give them kind of weird additions that kind of look awesome, like little things that look like that. And also it's scaling. I want a huge nose or a little nose, or that sort of stuff, so you can move it around and have that freedom to customize stuff. And it's pretty versatile, I would say. Definitely more versatile than the average stuff that's out there, because you can still move stuff around. And a lot of other MMOs, it's just kind of pick face 1, 2, 3, skin color 4, and then there you go. So yeah, I think we have a lot of options in ours.
Excellent. And let's talk a little bit about depots.
Sure.
Do you want to tell us what they are, why they're important?
So settler depots are these items that you can interact with, and you can pick in the world where you want to place certain things. As a settler, you have this ability to build objects. And what's cool is if I wanted to build a mailbox or guards for a town or a taxi to go somewhere, I can build those things as a settler. And if I've already built one, and let's say that another settler comes in, they can contribute resources to keep those things around because they decay over time. So, if you want to keep it up for a long period, that's how you do it. And it's super helpful and beneficial to have a settler in the area or be one yourself, because you can build these things that just make life a lot easier in your leveling experience.
Can you have a mixture of capabilities and abilities? So can you be a settler who's also something else, or is it you pick one class?
It's you pick a class and a path, and that is it. You know, class is like how you kill things. The path is like how you play the game, and you start at the beginning and you keep it that way until the end of your experience. But you can also roll alts. The other thing that's really cool is you can, let's say that you're a scientist and I'm a settler. If you open an exolab, I can go with you into that exolab. And if I'm building up an infrastructure, of course, you can partake in some of the stuff that I've put out. So it's a pretty cool system because it allows group gameplay, but it also allows you to complete stuff as a single player too.
Cool. So obviously, playing the game, you get XP. There's path XP and level XP.
Correct.
Do you want to explain the difference?
Sure. So path XP is different from regular XP because we wanted to have something that you get after every level for the path. So level 1, you get, let's say, pants or something like that are beneficial for you. Level 2, it could be something like a bag to get extra stuff. But really it was a progression system that we wanted to differentiate and reward you for completing. Regular XP is just, gotten by killing things and doing the usual stuff you get XP for. So yeah, it was just a different system, and it was something that we wanted to reward and incentivize players to complete with, so that that's why we separated them out.
Yeah, and obviously you've mentioned guilds.
Yeah.
So there'll be quite a lot of guild options, will there, in the game?
Most definitely. I think guilds is probably one of the more important things in the social end of what we do. I think that there are going to be a lot of options, and we have a social team at work actually that just works on social features, things like guilds and things like housing. And I think that the guilds are going to be pretty happy with the options because we've got some pretty big social enthusiasts on the team that are working on some of that stuff.
Great. And do you want to tell us a little bit about the combat system?
Sure. So our combat system is pretty unique, I think. The average character in our game has the ability to create their own telegraphs. We call it free form targeting. And so you can see on the ground in front of them where they're going to attack. So if you're a warrior, for example, and you do a sword swing, there's a telegraph on the ground that you can aim. And if there are 3 guys, you can run up to those 3 guys and place it in there. And with one attack, you can hit 3 guys. So that's cool. But we also have our enemies that can do the same thing. And they have telegraphs that range from level 1 to level 50. They get more and more complex. So some of them at the very beginning have just a cone in front of them and they'll hit, and then that's it. Other ones will have telegraphs that follow you around and that you have to dash out of to break it, or ones that are just gigantic in scope and only a little bit of area is safe. And so it means that you have to move around a lot. So we have things like dash, and we have sprint and double jump, tools to get you out of those situations. And on top of that, it's a little bit more twitchy. You kind of have to be on your toes and pay attention. It's not just the usual, I'm going to hit 1 and hopefully somebody dies. You have to move around, and I think it's a lot of fun, and it makes the leveling experience far more enjoyable than just the slog through, mundane combat.
And what's the current proposed release date?
2013.
2013. There's a closed beta at the moment, isn't there?
Correct.
And are you planning on an open beta later in the year?
Yes, most certainly. We are basically trying to get through all the little bugs right now and get those worked out, and we're getting feedback from everybody in our closed beta, and we're testing the content. We just did 1 through 24, and now we're going to do 1 through 30, and we're going to continue to go up as we go along. But we're just taking feedback from people right now, trying to figure out what the critical issues are. And we're also having a stress test. I think it's this weekend or next weekend, getting 15,000 people in to see what breaks. And it's going to break.
Yeah.
We just want to figure out exactly what the problem is early on, so we can address those things, so we can be prepared for the open beta.
And will there be a Mac version as well as a PC version?
Not at release, but it is something that we are definitely thinking about, because we know that there are Mac fans out there. So yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
So, as you can see, the choice of your path brings with it a number of challenges. Fortunately for those of you who are looking for a way out, I have a different alternative. Any takers?